Nebeje Joshin Meta. Dome de Boye Token. Yena Juba Yo Yedang. Rana Mendra La Kania Daya. Tata Jing Chamde Jekana. Shetana saw Nemo Shenji Kone. And some Shendu Inwate. Goba Mares, Gobala Deja Chato Goa in the Tenyan Yishinaki Nami Reche. Taya semi bala Zejun Nami Gala, and a Tabala Sova. And a gave me Bashana Troina, gave me Bala Troina. Then Nami Yang, Goba Mare. Nami Yang Goba Mare, Gobala, Nemo Yugo in the Gobada. Nimon Janji, Nami Main, so Gobaya Main, Nimon Nami Main, Ra. Then Chiwani, you Misawatang. And a Saji Tanja Yang, Zindangang are Chaba, that Chiwa Chamo, Zindangang are March, had you got a happy number Jana. Chiwana soon good water.
So we arrived at that point on the bottom of page 171 in the sub-commentary where it says that anger and so forth, the other mental afflictions, when one is distracted by means of them, then it's not what is called agitation here. And although it is, those are forms of distraction which are included within the 20 subsidiary mental afflictions. And then if one's mind is going out to even a virtuous object, such as if one has faith, in that case, that is a kind of distraction, but it is not what is categorized or defined as agitation here, and it's also not a form of distraction which is mentally afflicted. And so then this leads to the next topic, which is that here dullness is the lack of clarity with respect to the object, and or I'm sorry, with regard to dullness, although the object is unclear, and one has, with respect to the subjective perceiver here, so I'm sorry. So with respect to dullness, although one has some unclarity with respect to the object, and
Chiwa you Misawatang, Saji Tanja Zamyang, Naja Zamyang, and a Zindangang are. Lotte Chungshi, the Sajing Ayang, Zindangang are Chabinaga, Chiwani, Chiwatamod.
So here then, with respect to dullness, it has as its aspect a kind of laxity in which the intensity of the way in which one is apprehending the object is broken. There's an interruption in the intensity of that, even though, so in that case there, the object would be actually unclear, or even if one still has that kind of clarity with respect to the object, if the intensity of the manner in which one is apprehending the object is broken, then one has this dullness, which has as its it is a kind of laxity with respect to the way in which one is apprehending the object.
Oh yeah, the any kaka nang do semi bala, and zeki da kasur nede, asajing ameba yin zang, and nang namin do, chiwatela nang namin chene, mindago in bari, rawa, in that chiwa, nang namin do songxing. And it's Chiwala, and a Gawadam, Chiwa Chamode, Gawadam, and or Tene and a Luma den years, Luma den New Year. 다青蛙给觉得啦，青蛙姐姐给觉得啦，你的木巴，你的木巴所青云居的，那当泡吧的，他那一的木巴来带呢，那甚至真当甚木巴，甚至真当汤巴的药吧来，甚木巴啦，那把汤巴药吧抬来，中些杀进我的。要把台啦，中些血雨推荐，啥情啊？中些血雨推荐，安尼汤面情况差不多，安尼定个钱来假设，定个钱这样的，定个钱啦，没得别给我讲，是吧？
So here then, with respect to dullness again, it could be either a lack of clarity of the object, or even if one has that clarity present, there's a breakage in the intensity of the way in which one is apprehending the object from the subjective perceiver's side. And so it has that aspect of laxity in the way the way the mind is perceiving the object. So this is taught as an internal form of distraction. And with regard, that is, dullness is taught as an internal form of distraction. And that has both two forms, virtuous and a neutral form. And in dependence upon the causes which give rise to dullness, which are things like sleep and grogginess, those give rise to dullness. Then, when at the very beginning, when one is losing the tightness with which the mind is apprehending its object, when that first starts to be lost, then that is called a subtle form of dullness. And subtle dullness is because it's still within the purview of meditative concentration. That is, it's still within the boundary of meditative concentration. That kind of dullness is still virtuous in character.
Oh yeah, 听到我的安生没把了这几段那边，那我咱们民长安尼没那位定个咱们马代边给我当，看来安尼我什啥都上就干了，安尼你们讲的上话，人家请我来给我当，安尼嘛。 路马的你有谁的个的，啥吧，啥是上完呢？安尼你们讲就上完呢，路马的都下把一呢，大家把起手，
So these distinctions then are between a subtle form of dullness, in which this is happening within the context of one still having a single-pointed concentration on the object. So that form of dullness is still is happening within single-pointed meditative concentration. So therefore, it is categorized as being within virtuous. But then when that kind of subtle dullness increases in force and degrades into grosser forms of dullness, then it becomes a non-virtuous form of dullness. And that being the case, then the author of the commentary here is saying that whether this is something that should be categorized as neutral or not is something that someone ought to investigate.
Okay, that thing, you don't move by you can move by the country cigarettes and I think it's a part of move by the I need to move it. Some miss our the move it. Ani lui dan sem ni ga lui sem chi xin ani lui sem le som mi ro ma ni mo ge ge chuo che ge ni mo tam je ge chuo che ba gi ani le chen o ten zhe ji la ani mu ba la da ge wa me ba chen ani mu ba la mi ge wa dan zhu lu ma den o zhu lu ma den ni ya ba de.
So then now, with regard to grogginess, this is a portion of confusion within the three poisons of confusion, attachment, and anger. If one it's included within that category of the mental afflictions. And it is something that makes one's mind heavy and not able to, not serviceable for whatever one is employing the mind for. And it has the function of serving as a assistant to all of the other forms of mental affliction. And so this grogginess is categorized as, there are two forms of it, one which is strictly non-virtuous, and another form which is called obscurational and not and neutral in that respect.
Oh yeah, mubade ane kasare nimonje jangi nimonje sem tamje ko kordo yawa yinzang koma gi sem ko kordo chue mubade ta luma driblu ta sha tin bare.
So then so this grogginess, which is defined as like an obscuration and is neutral in character, is so designated because it functions as a sort of precursor for all. Because it's part of the categorized within the category of confusion, a type of confusion within the three poisons. Then, therefore, since it functions to as an assistant to the arising of the other kinds of mental afflictions, therefore it's categorized as neutral in that it gives rise to both forms, the anger and attachment and so forth.
Oh yeah, that thing is another jewaki, and a guardian, and it's chunga mobile so at that. Guardian that, and then more shavy, call your batanji moshapa. And then Yamyong dinner, and then labor and mercy, but I'm a com jump to Ghana, and then or Yamyong dinner, mercy, but singer simbe, and then Gomla Toma, you be too so young, and it's chunga jawa dasho. I get up Chabane, and then or castle chunga jawa the region. Or Tamaria chunga, Chama Malubaya, and Chama Maluba, so ruby, and it does she get too much gogures, or she get too much majuna. And it tirumbo gono chajang, chunga chunshi do, and it chunga yawa jawa them, Mashiwa chache. And it chunga jawa the macho, and it ding it in the chinga knew the truly, chinga knew the truth, and it chamok to it about it, chunga chamok to it about the youngres.
So then, that being the case, it's not enough merely to have an understanding that identifies what these opponent forces are, that is, dullness and agitation as the opponent forces for the development of meditative concentration. Rather, one has to properly identify them based upon one's experience. Here, experience refers to, in the context of one's practicing this kind of meditation, be able to identify them and know them through that experience. And but if one doesn't do it in that way, or that is, having identified them in that way, then one should perform meditation practice with having that identification based on one's own experience. But if one doesn't have that, then what needs to be said about the ways in which dullness and agitation arise even at the beginning of meditation practice, but rather one has to definitely has to be able to identify them by means of the introspection, which understands them individually and knows them in their entirety, so that that introspection is able to identify the all of the different forms, even the most subtle forms of dullness and agitation, and knows them right as they're about to occur. And then that's sort of an initial phase of development in meditation practice. And then as one gets later into the practice as well, one has to be able to identify even the subtlest forms of these opponents to the development of shamatha, and recognizing dullness and agitation as they're appearing in their subtle forms. And if one doesn't have that kind of definite ascertainment of dullness and agitation in both their gross and subtle forms in the course of one's meditation practice, then even if you were to meditate for a long time, for years, if you're doing that in a way which you don't have the understanding and a kind of experience, a sensation actually, of how it is that dullness and agitation, as they're arising, then one is passing one's time just under the control of subtle forms of dullness or agitation. Even if one develops special kinds of meditative concentration, if one doesn't have the ability to identify and counteract, especially the subtler forms of dullness, then one's time is being spent merely under the control of that, even if one meditates for years.
Oh yeah. 대 세제 탐제 쳔베 제가 도마 제때 뭐지 다 친구 주모주 르비 시신 되니 아니 나르지 템베 종루세 템바기 아니 강 띵의지 요 미바데 템바기 아니 토레 송루 아니 토레 송와데 종루 대당 아니 투모 많이 be주지니 아니 미바라 토레 송에 템바티 안에 대래 현도 아니 미바 현도 초마 줘라 아니 시신 그 차례쳐 봐 시신이 차례쳐 봐 어디니라 개배나 대나 아니 다 개배 인반다 시신 좀 내다 들이
So then, as far as the introspection, which is aware, here again, introspection is aware of the arising of dullness and agitation in their different forms when they're arising, and identifies them, and so that introspection, which is aware of dullness and agitation, is the sole cause, sole unique cause for this method of maintaining awareness, as it was expressed earlier, as it was previously expressed in the text. And so that being the case, one within this state of mindfulness. Here, the mindfulness again is not forgetting the object of meditation, and then one has to post introspection as a sentry to observe whether or not the mind is wandering, is going from, is being distracted and diffused towards some other object apart from that which you've placed your mindfulness on.
어제는 다들이 단다야게 로션을 레로 그냥 뭐 시체 아니 참 가서래 땅아 집에 있는 뭐지 참바체 증거 그냥 뭐지 시신체 다도 생하러 와 다된다 니라 아니 된다를 전세기 종로 또단 덴베 전세기 종로 템베 토레 송화당 시신 같은다 송화나신 전에 아니 가서를 처맞아 차라차니 아니 전시신이 그 종로대 교매바 또단 덴베 아니 증거 참몽을 쓰나양 증거 참몽을 쓰나양 증거 주마다 증거 깨마다도 아니 가서래 가비 쪼와 미담발 되면서 줘봐대 당어봐 두메시베 아니와 지그래 증거 총이체 아니 녀뭐 마대나 시신거 잘하더니 어버 마잖아 녀뭐 마대나 아니 녀와 인장 오다 녀와 직디벌 이다 전세지 종로 또단대베 세가 증거 배 띵어지 좀 또단대베 심마 참몽을 쓰나양 다더니 증거 깨마타도 아니 고비 쪼와 마대바 대물 줘봐대 아니 두메셔봐는 야와 직시 야와 침보 야와 직체 야와 침보
So thus those when one recognizes that the mind is being diffused towards any object other than the object that one has placed one's mindfulness upon, then recognizing that by means of introspection is the essential point of maintaining introspection. And thus, it says here that thus, someone who has a very powerful way of maintaining mindfulness and introspection and is able to identify even the subtler forms of dullness and agitation. But even if one has that, has achieved that, if one doesn't employ exertion to stop, doesn't employ exertion in order to stop dullness and agitation as soon as they arise, then one de musu jokpe dumichepa. De musu jokpe dumichepa.
아니 되면서 줘 봐서 쪼와 마된 바체 아니 증거 주마다 증거 고바 그 쪼와 마된 바 아니 샤야 돼 되면서 줘 봐기 좀 되면서 줘 봐기 두 메세 바데 녀와 첨보래 두 메세 비기 녀보 되라 아니 뒤 녀보 아니 증거 그 녀보 바 두쳐 바데 증거 녀보 바 두 메세 비 녀보 되라 녀보 바 두쳐 봐 대녀보 두지 선바 공바 숨바 때 숨바 대주가 어때 야 그래서 증거 조회체 아니 녀보 공바 두 메체 바데 아니 녀와체 대면서 쇼바데 녀와체 당고 두 메체 비녀보 되나 아니 대녀보 증거 그 녀보 공바 두쳐봐
뭐 두쳐봐 오케이
두체바 공바대
두체바 공바
뭐 공바 두체바
두체기 고든디 야부 라기멘도
녀뭐 두체바스라 녀뭐 땜바스 그러와
So if one doesn't apply the effort, exertion, which is able to stop all of these, as soon as they arise, the different dullness and agitation, then, and one continues to engage in this placement of the mind continuously without employing that exertion to stop all of the forms of sinking and agitation, then that's a big mistake. Therefore, it's essential to employ the antidote to that, which by cultivating intention here. Intention is the antidote for that fault, which is the fault here is the non-employment of the specific antidotes that function to stop dullness and agitation. So here then, intention, one's intention, and
대년보 아니 두체바 셈바 사람 두체 공방 그러와 두체바 그 안에 셈바세 심용금을 따거래 그러와 두체 셈바 공방 숨베세 아니 대심용체 대 공방 숨베 대니 간데레서나 빼난 녹칼렌지 짜라와 매바 요와나 신체니 짜라와 매바 요와나 요와 따르 심중 요신 꾸어 체비 안에 가서 sem유라 요신 꾸어 체바기 안에 sem중지라 안에 단다 뒤적 셈바스
So this activity of intention here functions as the antidote for that fault of not employing the appropriate antidote by making exertion, exerting yourself to use that antidote for the specific form of dullness or agitation that arise. And so since that's taught to be the way in which one needs to cultivate the meditation here, then with respect to that, this activity of intention, it's explained with an example of just as when you're using a magnet, the iron filings that one is moving around with the magnet. Those iron filings don't have any kind of autonomy. They're not able to control how they're moving around. And then intention is a mental factor which operates so as to blanking here. Sorry. 심유를 요신 구어체베 심중시인.
심유를 요와시 유를 요신 구어체바게 심중시인라. 니니 중국 강중 강춘양 대방와라 심유도바 구어체바데 심라신도바체베 심신신 가서래 구어체바게 아니 심신도바차와.
So it's here simpa or intention is a mental factor which functions to move the mind in the direction of an object and to sort of drive the mind in the direction of a particular object. And this, in order to abandon, to get rid of whichever of the dullness and agitation are arising, this intention has to be brought forth so as to quickly drive the mind to do that, to impel the mind to get rid of whichever of the forms of dullness and agitation are arising.
Oh yeah, that 되게 도저히 선바 되게 아니 증거 강한 중화의 뽕하나 셈니도 구어의 체진 셈신도 바체 자와르와 구어 체단 간데레에서나 셈배 구네 셈바 되게 구네 증거 고주 간데레에서나 아니 셈칭나 진당 바 사원 매바 사사진 아드마 쇼이나 아니 쇼나 사진 아드 쇼네 칭나 진당 팀도 당와당 진당 사진 아드인데 진당의 팀도 당와당 대 팀도 당장 단도 안에 가서래 마도나 사진다 쇼라드 마도나 대장 모도 미도비 다도 야양 용나 아니 가서래 미바 땅라세 안지 어디 칸라 미바데 미바데 땅체 아니 튀마다 와체체 튀마다 와체 심 초유주 가서래 셈치로나 초유주 치마 가야기 아니 군조라 대박 권매당 아니 내준데 그 남에 세바라 소와 텐데기 아니 가대 대니기 아니 파인 초라 아니 소소 아니 미바단에 소소 잡아당 랑게 자와 최디를 소위 라미가진 템바소 고음네 안에 셈데야 생되데 되네 안에 자이 미된데라 아니 스튠팅 안에 자이 미된데라 안에 셈아신 안에 주바차고레.
So then how is it the actual way in which one employs intention so as to and drives oneself impels oneself via intention so as to stop sinking and agitation. In the case of sinking or dullness, I should say, dullness and agitation, when dullness arises, one should tightly focus one's mode of apprehension of the object that one is focusing on. Tightly focus that. And then if that still doesn't work so as to avert the dullness that's arising in the mind, then and one has tried that repeatedly so as to avert that the arising of dullness within the mind, then one should temporarily turn away from the object that one is focusing on but without giving up the meditation session that one is engaged in at that particular time. One should employ some kind of cause which serves to make the mind more open and diffuse, so that causing the mind to sort of expand and to be more open. And so the examples would be like developing, having joy by thinking about the good qualities of the three jewels of faith and so forth. Thinking about examining individually, investigating the side of things which are beneficial and virtuous in nature that are able to induce within one joy and faith. And then in addition, by having meditated upon the kindness of one's own guru, which has led to your own activities going in the direction of being harmonious with the Dharma, then in that way one can fortify one's mind and bring forth, sort of encourage one's own mind in that way, and then return to the root objective support here, basis of the basic object that one is meditating upon, and act and continue to practice the meditation as you were previously.
Oh yeah. Na tenda tedar chejang se kana ani tenda kaso re mi pa tan la tu ma tan ba ani kaso re kondo shaba ki ani gawata tepata ani kunjo sora tende chewi kane tando ani saji tetane ti jela ani mi pa la zejidu tan zejidu shade ani saji ngada dambaji ani yang 사지 마단 담바지 아니 바 메발에 되는 사지 가다 담바지 디가나 다도야 아니 사지 가다 담바 미제나 대달 제장 리방 안 된도 미제나 아니 사시 바 사지 가다 담바 총르에서 연구매나 아니 튀다니 튀고라 다니 아니 제람 차바상 아니 아니 라름 나도 아니 제람 차바다 아니 텐데 달리를 숨바다래 체네 아니 뒤제라 아니야 냐바 쇼크에 들린 말에
So that's the way one does it if one's remaining within the meditation session, and you as a beginner you find your mind is becoming extremely dull and is dominated by dullness. Then as
제람 차바다 나이 참아 일을 차바라 텐데 제자리가나 아니 양이 편해요 이 말에
So then, within the context of the session itself, if you're remaining within the session, but you find your mind is dominated by dullness, then, as mentioned, then you should set aside the principal object that you're focusing on at that moment, and turn your mind towards thinking about things that uplift the mind, that fortify it or encourage it, by thinking about things that engender faith within you, that produce joy and so forth, virtuous things that do that, and by thinking about the benefits of the three jewels and so forth, those sorts of things on that side that will cause the mind to be invigorated in that way, and then or like thinking about the way in which your own actions here are, due to the kindness of one's guru, have gone in the direction of the Dharma, and do that. And then you return to the primary, the object of meditation. Here, talking about the clarity and cognitive or aware nature of the mind. And so then that's what you do if you're able to do that within the context of the meditation session. But if that is not working, and one's awareness is not, you're not able to give rise to awareness that has the proper intensity, then one should set aside the meditation session for the time being, and go out for a walk and do things like that, of that nature. And the other things are like go out into the sunshine and get reinvigorated in that way through external factors. And these are all explained in the Shravaka Bhumi, the stages of the Shravaka practitioner that are enumerated also in the great stages of the path.
Oh yeah, that de chingge sewa, chingwa sewa ge, ane tab de chen, chingwa chuna. Da tenne tajin na xin chen, ane goba chungwa de xi yina, right? Goba jena, goba de ta de sem chiro la yinwa yin zang, ane sem nang du de ba ge du. Oh, sem nang du de ba ge du la, ane khoya nyemi sawa dang, ane mi da ba la so wa sam ni gang la. 아니 이충하고 거기 디비주 이충 세가나 아니 미다바사바다 코알은 나와 지외 내주 나서 삼니 아니 거바 심마타 아니 차바데 거바 대자가 차도 봐 이제 텐저 거바데 봐 가마타 보면 심마타 양미바나 제주도 양바 줘봐서 아니 가서 다시 나신 제 이번 양바자 대장 마시나 아니 다시 나시 튀은 미반마다 봐 튀은 당니 야 가서 내줄라서 템바체 대장 마시나 저런 차발라서 다 다시도 집어체
So that's for the side of the dullness as it's arising. Then within the context of a meditation session again, if agitation arises, then one should employ the method of thinking about things which give rise to sort of the mind being brought back inside, causes which give rise, which causes that things that cause the mind to be internalized again instead of being agitated. So, for example, meditating upon renunciation and things that give rise to renunciation, thinking about the defects of samsara, thinking about impermanence, the impermanence of death and so forth, or the other sorts of things that cause the mind to be brought down to a less agitated state. And so this is just in the same way, this applies in the same way that we discussed how one deals with dullness. That is, first, if you do it within the context of, within the session, and if that finally doesn't work, then again you can suspend the meditation session and go outside for a walk or do things that are will cause the mind to be calmed down, to be brought, internalized and calmed down. And so that's it's presented in the same way that it was presented above with respect to dullness.
Oh yeah, that don't na. That can be young to can be sana. Dona chocolate some name de say gana chowa name da goba. Ane tele sem su lende, nandu lende, su lende, ane nandu. And that the dear guy in a sem sari chag, Mubatella, Ane Mubalaba Nede, Ane Mubatella Teju, Neja Zayata. Sem Ane Mubala Nere Shingi, Neja Chungre Shigin, Ane Chinsen Chani, Chimaki Market, Topaja, Jadi, Ane Ton Chinsen Jadi, Ane Mubala Neva Tela, Ane Sajing Art 20. 啥情啊？对，我听你这没说钱呢，你我们你第怎么是第怎么听查呢？你什么把它白听查呢？给把这个人，给把今年度人把来出军山把刘海堂。第怎么你什么把它来呢？去年青蛙今年度人把来什么什么出对的找把的。
So then this way of doing this practice is that one needs to employ each of these methods in depending upon which particular obstacle is arising, whether it's the dullness or agitation. So it says here in brief, one has to return the mind from this diffusion. Diffusion here means like going out, wandering after other objects, or that sort of thing. Or here, I'm sorry,
좋아서는 남이나 고고하래. 좋아서는 남이나 고초거래. 좋아당 고발에 샘추련데 나도 되니. 아니 미바 단다 디가서 예나 샘사를 그 찾아라 미바달라 따라. 아니 될라 제주대 내가 내셔자. 아니 내셔지 중물에 저기 아니 샘사징 알때 마 냐바 라 독선 셔야지 아니 사징 알수 된바다 사징 알 된바.
So it says in brief then, when one observes that the mind is being distracted either by dullness, is like falling away from the object due to dullness or agitation, then one has to return the mind back into the inside and place it upon the object. Here the object again is the clarity and awareness character of the mind in this context, and try to make the mind remain in that state of focus being placed on the object of clarity and awareness. And then when one achieves some level of that abiding of the mind, or the mind remaining on that, since it's the case that there's danger of the fault of dullness arising, then one should try to, at that time, try to bring forth a sort of intensity for the clarity of the mind. Try to bring forth more intensity on the clarity aspect of the mind. And if one does those two in alternation, that is applying the antidote for dullness, applying the antidote for agitation, according to the respective way that it was explained above. And then one thinks that one should examining the mind, thinking that at this point my focus is too tight. I'm too tightly focused, and there's the risk of agitation occurring. When one recognizes that, then one should relax a little bit at that point. And then on the other hand, if one thinks I'm a little I'm too much relaxed at this point, and there's the risk that dullness will arise, then at that point in time, one should get the mind sort of up, 심뜻에 좁아, 심뜻에 좁아,
그래서 과라서다.
그래서 dit some learner, 칭년도,
대래 아니
심뜻에 좁아.
디담도 내자 총례지 중세사제 사정 아된체 대니 레메스 전에 디담 팀차나 셈미바라 바 팀차나 거바 깨니 두냠바래 아니 중세야 르 팀차바데 아니 르 차나 칭와 깨니 두냠바데라 양 우야 셈야 생대도 줘바데 아니 렘비 삼지어바데 렌잠지어바데
So then at that point, then one should, if you notice that, I'm a little too relaxed at this point, and there's the danger that this dullness will come into effect, then one should one should sort of uplift one's mind, cause it to be more intense. And if one's able to place one's mind in that way by alternating between relaxation and tightening of the focus and elevation of the focus of the mind, then one has taken hold of the criterion of an appropriate way of doing this. One has grasped the sort of literally grasped the border or the criterion of the appropriate way to place the mind.
Oh yeah, that day, oh, tendeki, ane semi bala josula keve, that dorduna, migden semtela, ane rangipa lo tadi, tabi, ane sajing attende, ripang andendo, ane migden de la techi never chaba. Oh.
So then, in brief, if one abbreviates this to a great extent, if one is if one is skilled in this way of placing the mind, then one should do it such that one has the mind remaining as much as one can, single-pointedly, with a kind of very, very intense awareness of the object to which one has attached the mind, the main mind. That is the objective support. The mind here is the object. And so one has to have a very vivid and sort of intense awareness of that, and have that single-pointedly in place for as long as one's able to maintain it.
Oh yeah, 근데 인자다 감지 파제 미세와. 라 랑 안에 띵을 좀 공부하라. 안에 랑 수보 대다 매발라 셈사 안에 사 텐데기 녀보 텐데기 파제 텐데 팜 메세바. 안에 니마 진이라 우주잠지 안에 공부 텐데 마임바. 우주체네. 아니 탑게지 아니 탑라 캐요고네 아니 미바데 때네 세미바라 따와데 때네 메도비 고네 아니 공신 아니 증거니보다 사신 내도 주비 아니 내도 줘봐 지식 총화 대세도 총화데 아니 다 튼자게 차들이 튼기.
So then, as far as the duration of one's meditation session, here it says that one should not do a meditation session, sort of force oneself to do it, so that to the point that the elements within one's body become sort of obstacles to the mind being able to remain on the object in the way that one is attempting to do that. And like doing this, pushing yourself very forcefully for a day or two in a way that will create these kinds of obstacles of the elements within your body functioning to make it impossible for you to remain in meditative stabilization. Not doing it that way, but by means of one has to do it as it was explained above, such that one doesn't completely, by employing skillful means, as they were explained above, in terms of how one applies the appropriate antidote to both dullness and agitation, so that one doesn't get frustrated and completely abandon the practice of meditation that one has taken up. Then, if one understands how to maintain meditation such that it goes to the essential point that one is attempting to achieve, then, and when does it in that way, then that is the actual measure of the meditation session that one should be employing. That means that here one shouldn't try to do an extremely long sessions as a beginner, to the point that you're pushing yourself beyond your limits and end up failing out of frustration and casting aside the entire practice. Rather, you should start off with with sessions that which you're able to maintain, so that the practice arrives at the key point that you're trying to achieve.
that 대체 다르시 안드니 가서래 딩이 바제스나 모두 다 주조 가르고 고거래서나 주조 파시에 되라. 안부고 마송화당 아니 세지 천미리 발라서와 아니 친구 기위 주투모와당 아니 친구니지 아니 가서래 소수비 주나 말레바르 시에바잖아 바나 아니 공원신 장소나 아니 등은지 주메 아니 유튜브 주그래 손도
Thus, if one does that, if one practices such that one is, first of all, has to understand what it is that creates these, what gives rise to dullness and agitation. And these have their specific causes as well as common causes that give rise to them. And for example, not guarding one's faculties, that is, not protecting oneself from coming into contact with things which will create agitation or generate dullness, that sort of thing. And there are other forms, other activities or lack of vigilance that produce dullness and agitation. Having understood those, one has to, once one does understand them and gets rid of them, avoids them, then one will be able to achieve a faultless form of meditative concentration quickly.
Oh yeah. Oh, that 친구 디다게 가서 청와 세위 쳐라. 아니 가서래. 아니 다 가져. 아가와다 대바께와라서와 아니 가져께와당 다시 권도 시원나 신체네 아니 잡주연데 삼바라서와 라마나 대바라서와 진도 그바세비 템스탐라 아니 코에 그와 템바당 딩은지 께매장 니몬전도 메제비 탑사와니 아니 다 차유미다 봐 공바 니몬전도 메제비 공 아니 탑 사바데 차유미다바 공바 어딘데 아니 동아 공바다 차유미다바 공바라 소와데다 공바소 인베 슌다 튀비 명아라 충호세 어데체 야 대답도 주시다 대체점
So then within the context of these two, the two here are talking about the way of the methods of avoiding dullness and agitation. Then as far as the things which function to clear away dullness, again, we mentioned briefly that one has to do things that give rise to a kind of uplift the mind, and so develop sort of a more joyous attitude within the mind, enthusiasm, through thinking about the virtues of the three jewels, thinking about faith in virtuous things, and thinking about the kindness of one's guru to enable you to do Dharma practice and so forth. And then one should, as far as agitation is concerned, one should recall, should develop within oneself kind of disgust for samsara by thinking about the fact of impermanence, death, suffering, and so forth. Those things serve to calm the mind down, to eliminate agitation. And then the most profound method for making it so that one's meditative concentration let me restart that. The most profound method for ensuring that one's meditative concentration, even if it is devoid of those faults, doesn't fall into the category of
Oh yeah.
So the most profound method for ensuring that one's faultless meditation does not become something that is on the side of mental affliction is meditation upon the subtle and gross forms of impermanence. That's explained in the great texts, and so this is likewise how it appears in the instruction here, which accords with the great texts.
Oh yeah, that day, 제가나 나한테 내가 즉 다준데 친구 총이 제냐봉 뭐 도매셔 받이 녀와라와. 저와 녀봉 뭐 도매셔 받이 녀와라와. 다 단단데 친구 맞추 위치 녀봉 뭐 두쳐 받이 녀와인 말에. 중거 맞춤이 진행봉 봐 좀 미적고 말은 년봉 뭐 두잖아 녀와래 대인상 대달 중거 조야 까비 투레스 중거대 안에 템베 시신그 삼바촌에 안에 중거 조야 까비 중거가 왕도 맞서버다 조야 까비 투레 안에 조매도 중거 맞춤 봐 조매도 주비체 공신 안에 다녀 뭐 두쳐봐대 중거 그냥 뭐 두쳐봐대 녀와 임배 뒤에 가서 아니 녀뭐 두 미세봐 녀뭐 람바수 조배 단용 공고래 두제 단용 공고래 녀와 임배 뒤에 녀뭐 람바수 조배 두제 단용 공바 아니 공바 차신 조알레비 두제 단용 되니 다 배조 미세봐 조알레비 두제 단용 돼 녀뭐 공바 두 미세봐 두제 두 미세봐 그 단용돼 조알레비 두 단용 돼 안에 섬내 고와야게 대선제 집에 띵을 마도 봐도 이미 중국 중화 나님 되니 섬내 고와 마도 봐도 미중화 아니 매주에 리시 공도 매도 송하 야 또와 매주 저도 조제지 나님 대로데 다람비 참선 바치고래 제가 다들 조제지 조조와 지리 간에 람비 참선 바 시에데 가래에서 나준다 뒤 중국 마주에 가라 안에 녀보 마주에 잘 녀보 좀 매셔봐 안에 좀 매셔봐 따님 주셔봐도 람비 참인 말에
So thus, here from the force of stopping dullness and agitation through exertion, by that, eventually one is able to arrive at the point at which one is able to engage in meditative concentration without any exertion at all. And this eventually will arise. But so when one arrives at that point where one is able to engage in single-pointed meditative concentration without requiring any exertion at all, then actually applying the antidote, say the antidote to dullness or the antidote to excitement or agitation are actually a fault. So one shouldn't apply the antidotes once one arrives at that point of effortless single-pointed meditative concentration. And at that point, once one does arrive at that stage of effortless single-pointed meditative concentration, one should instead meditate on a kind of neutral or a neutral form of placing the mind such that it sort of flows along on its own. It flows along on its own and without needing to apply the antidotes which were mentioned above. And this sort of sense, this kind of equanimity is itself the antidote to inappropriately applying the antidotes which were necessary, were appropriately applied at the earlier stages of development of this kind of single-pointed meditative concentration. So this kind of equanimity, activity of equanimity, which is the relaxation of exertion, is something that doesn't arise until one obtains the 10th stage of mental placement. So, since that's the case, it's not something that one can meditate upon sort of at the very beginning of or at the earlier stages of development of this meditative stabilization.
Oh yeah, that 되게 대연적이 두스마 송산이 나더니 다디 미발 가서래 정도 되라 때는 셈내 기위를 방어에 다 마송 거래. 라 단다야 마송이다. 다디 란데게 가서 그냥 딜 주바체베 띵어진 중 오니 사윙 아단 담바탕 두자 띵어진 사윙 아단 담바탕 아니 제집에 미도바 야라 니당 댐비 아니 세미바라 제주 내비 아니 미도바 지당 미바라 제주도 내와 태양 아니 사진 아르메 바 마인 바 사진 아단 댐바 그 안디게 지고 그래서 我天着我对他形象给带来什么呢？现在才100钱，啊，形象给带来现在才100，带到为现在才100呢，2把马下被杀吧。但是这就被定义成了穷人了，他在3年过个哪呢？3年过，但是这就被定义成了穷人。他天着为他但是这就3年过啊。我睇啦，那结巴呢，所以呢，3年我我就上来他都过要一张，他嘛送来的他对了送把那些以前的，他对同样过的，参学了送把的，天天广播前面，你往我帮对接代表对了穷写啥的，对了呀。
So then this leads to back into the auto commentary, where this is on page 79 of the Tibetan, which follows verse 23 in the root text, which is embedded in the auto commentary. So it says in here, as far as the character of the meditative concentration, which is to be accomplished here in this context. It possesses the kind of capability of clarity, and it's also a single-pointed, non-conceptual form of meditative concentration. So it's a meditative concentration that possesses these two factors, that is, the special intense clarity, as well as being single-pointed and non-conceptual. And the actual definitive form of that shamatha, such a shamatha, is something that arises from the single-pointed meditative concentration of a mind that's still within the desire realm, for people that have not yet achieved meditative stabilization. And this is explained in a text by Lord Maitreya, where it says this in reference to the meditative concentration, or specifically definitive form of shamatha, is that it has gotten rid of the 5 faults. It has arisen from the 8 forms of activity, and it arises from the cause of depending upon the things that are mentioned above, the abandonment of the 5 faults and the 8 activities. So this so the 8 by here, this shamatha as such is accomplished through placing the mind in the 9th of the 9 mind states that are developed in the course of developing shamatha. And so from that 9th mind state, that arises from using the antidote, which gets rid of the 5 faults to be gotten rid of, and which is employing the 8 forms of activity that function to get rid of the faults. And so here, likewise, it's said that shamatha as such arises from that 9th mind state. And the 9th mind state arises from the 8th, and the 8th from the 7th from the 6th, and so forth. So going back, one finds that this occurs sequentially through the process of getting rid of each of the specific faults that prevent the achievement of a particular state of mind within the sequence of 9, and then the abandonment of the specific faults arises from the application of the specific antidote, which is a specific form of activity that does that.
Oh yeah, that is. So the time the so the was na. Tani jonju dida dang. Tela tene semi bala ane o mi bala mi de asem de ane mi bala mi bala tene ta semne rimba shin de je joba dang. Ane jundu joba la so semne go de rimba ji wen dang. Ane semne go tela te tewa da samba dang la so wa ke top chu ki chu lu. 대라양 dimdi jubi 이제 당 체지 jubi 이제 라서 와 이제 시 예수 제라 통마 안에 장당 고름기 관여바 가치신 안에 신도 가와상에 스타 중침모도 두바셔야돼 가와상와 인자 중국어리 다 대라 다시 시원 나시 전에 예왕아본 두제제 위대 가서 참바기 예왕아본 두제제 때문에 줄라 시원 세가 다 예왕아와 다시 강도 쳐봐대래 와 레로체 땅아체 레로체 다모든 거지라 집에가 레로 예와 다 띵에 준 것이 고비냐면 아니 땅아체 바니와 아니 띵에서 고면 집에 가나 아니 증거니 예와체 숨체 아니 증거 중요이지 아니 뭐 도매셔봐도 예와 직체 아니 증거 맞춤이지 년봉어반 도체봐도 예와 직체제 아니 어다 예왕하지 두시 어다 디드마 태용 거리 뭐 예왕하니 야 반파지 태용 거다 뭐 지시하고 삼아도 벌리가 저기 있잖아.
So this is explained in here that in order to be able to develop shamatha, one has to do it in the appropriate sequence. That is, each of the placements, states of the mind, that one places the mind in a particular state, and then one based on that mental state that one has achieved initially, then one, through applying the appropriate force, which is an antidote to a particular obstacle or fault that prevents the achievement of a specific placement of the mind. Then one goes sequentially through the 9 different states of the mind, and using the specific forces and antidotes that operate so as to eliminate the specific faults that prevent that. And so this here it says in the commentary that that one has to as far as the way in which one maintains these different states of mind, and that is, one practices here. When one practices mindfulness and introspection throughout the course of this, and then in dependence upon that, one achieves the different stages by which the mental states arise, the way in which those are accomplished by means of the 6 powers and the 6 forces, and then the way in which there are 4 kinds of attention that have to be employed as well. So one has to know the number of those, the sequence of them, and this is extremely important. And also, by doing so, then one is an extremely fortunate person to be able to hear and to try to practice this kind of instruction. And so, therefore, this is explained in the Madhyanta Vibhaga, the differentiation of the extreme in the middle by Lord Maitreya, where it says here, and that's the verse that was quoted in the also in the sub-commentary, the getting rid of the 5 faults and the employing the 6 forms of activity within, the 8 forms of activity, and arise from depending upon the causes for that. And so here then, as far as the 5 faults are concerned, those are listed at the time that one applies oneself to the development of meditative concentration. Then laziness is the first fault. When one is making effort towards doing it, then forgetting the instruction is the second fault. Then when one is engaged in meditative equipoise, then dullness and agitation are faults. Those are the 2 are the faults. Nyapanga. So these will come out as we go along, because in the explanation of it, it will present the faults as well as the antidotes to them.
Oh yeah, 당의 배전을 쇼트만 하시잖아. 녀왕아니 다땡에서 고발한 주밤. 아니 조비세나. 아니 레로 그냥와 등에들 주발라 미조와 안에 파제 치고와 인장 조비선의 레로 녀와 레로 쳐봐대 녀와 탐보체 레로 되네 등에들라 주발라 준비체나 아니 곰당게 당화 제바 당화 제나 아니 그dem 주고 매바 인장 준비지 당화 제바대 녀와 니와체 라 다시 셈미발라 제주도 냐바 샤비 체 아니 칭화당 거바니 주나 중거니 우리 지도 차네 아니 와 숨바체 다 중거 중위지 다지 시와 나신 전에 중거 중위지 미소와 안와바도 메셔바데 녀와 시와데 체 중거당 자비체 아니 녀뭐 땜바데나 녀와 지인장 안에 도체비 셈바데 녀왕 아와티 체가라 다 증거니 지도 차외 아니 녀 마당 소소자나 촉체네 다도 셈바레
So then, here then, with respect to the 5 faults, then this is an explanation of the lines drawn from the differentiation of the middle and the extremes. So it says that when one is applying, at the time one is applying oneself to meditative concentration, being lazy is the first fault. And then when one is making effort towards, making effort towards actually practicing meditative concentration, forgetting the instruction is the second fault. And then when one is engaged in meditative equipoise, then dullness and agitation are the third fault. Those two are included within one fault, both dullness and agitation. And then at the time when dullness and agitation are arising, if one doesn't exert oneself, then that's the fourth fault. And at the time when one is free from dullness and agitation, if one utilizes intention, the activity of intention, then that's the fifth fault. And so in that enumeration of them, dullness and agitation are subsumed within a single category. And if you subdivide them, then you could enumerate the faults as 5. As 6.
That's one. What that true 다 대다그니 뭐 보면 되지 괜히 아니다 대래 리리년 뭐 시대스 내단 대라 내와니 규단 저우 니도 전에 위달을 숨바나신 아니 듬비네 진주 듬바데 칼라네스나 아니 대봐 소비 저부대라 아니 신장 세가나 내단 대라 내와니 규단 저우 니도 세가라 듬바데 대바데 듬비 규체 신장대 아니 준주기 저우 인장 오 대손디 가나 대마손디 가나 다더나 대바단 dum바당 조와 신장 대가는 연보래 선한 예와 니와 그 연보 당아 제바 그 연보 와 당아 제바 그 연보
So then with regard to those different
나가 지나 말다 통 참봐
So here then, this is explaining the differentiation of the extremes in the middle and the extremes by Lord Asanga, and so here then it lists the different faults and the antidotes to them. The antidotes to the 5 or 6 faults, depending on if you differentiate dullness and agitation as 2. The antidotes that get rid of those are the 8 activities, 8 activities. And so the activity of, there are 4 activities that function as antidotes to laziness. The first, these are faith, interest, exertion, and flexibility. Flexibility arises out of actually effort itself as a higher level of antidote to get rid of subtler forms of laziness. And then the antidote to the second fault is the antidote to forgetting the instruction is here is recollection, actually, is the right way to translate this. It's the same word that we typically translate as mindfulness, but here it has to be recollection, recollection of the instruction that you've received. Then the antidote to the third fault is introspection. The antidote to the fourth fault is the intention, activity, which is an activity, intention. And then the,
Dumba Taba, Tambo Dingy and then Tommy Tamba. Dingy and then Tommy Taba. And it dingy to Niji Tam Dumba. Dumba Dingy Tendony to Anit Dumbaje. Dumbaje Walla Dana, anything to Toby to do, and it Junjisam. Junjisam Walla Zamne, anything is to come back at Tadashinjang, they were talking over in Zang. Only, or any day some Walla Dana, any castle.
So then, again, going back to the first of these, the four antidotes to laziness, faith arises from understanding the good qualities of the benefits that arise from developing meditative concentration. And then interest arises from that faith when develops more interest in achieving those good qualities. And from that interest, in turn, arises exertion. One will engage, make efforts to accomplish meditative concentration. And then that, in turn, produces this kind of mental and physical flexibility, making the mind and body able to do what one wants them to do. And that operates to get rid of subtler forms of laziness, and it itself arises out of exertion.
아니 친구기 년보대라 년봉의 아니 미팅을 원실에 주비체나 아니 등을 파도 잡아라 다중 공도 잡아 나시 친구니 여와 인상 아니 친구기 년보대라 아니 시신기 차라차니 아니 친구 갖고 요 인상 친구기 년보 시신 그러봐 되니 시와 년부 두치 비선바세 가라 아니 가서래 두쳐봐 등을 점에로 내나 년부 두쳐봐대 등을 내위서는 년부 두쳐봐대 녀와체 친구 중위제 년부 두미셔봐대 녀와체 그러봐 나한테 다지도 고름대에서 두고 있어래.
So then the second fault is forgetting the instruction, as mentioned above, when one is in... So then the second fault is forgetting the instruction. And when one is trying to do meditation practice, making effort at it, you forget the instruction that you received. And that the antidote for that is recollection. It's the same word, again, that gets translated as mindfulness of the instruction. And then the antidote for the third fault, which is, again, dullness and agitation, is introspection, as mentioned above. Introspection observes the primary part of the mind, the mindfulness part of the mind, which is focused upon the object, and notices whether or not dullness and agitation are arising. And then the fourth obstacle or fault here is the antidote for that, which is the fault of not employing exertion when dullness and agitation arise, that fault is the antidote for that is the mind which applies or the literally intention is the way I've been translating this. It's more like sort of like mental application or applying the mind to employ the antidote that is necessary. And then when you've achieved the point where those faults of dullness and agitation are not arising in the mind, then it's actually a fault to employ, or it's a problem to actually employ the antidote when it's not appropriate to do so.
그래서我위에 뭐 나도 접에 다님데 제체, 아니 다테네 대체 다 대제라 다 도대견아 숨바케 셈낸 구호텔라 아니 담보 미바라 셈 줘봐 미바 아니 다 셈사지 그 샤텔라 셈 미바 줘봐 셈 줘봐 아니 대 줘봐 대 아니 셈 싫어도 용그래대 아니 뒤균티네 줘봐텔라 이와 균데 줘봐 아니 치료라 인와 될래 아니 수 셈난도 뒤대 줘봐달라 랜데 줘봐 와 아니 친구 되는 예와 줘봐당 시원 예와 줘봐당 두와 쳐봐당 주바 시와 쳐봐당 두바 남바 시와 쳐봐당 잡아 제지도 쳐봐 아니 고와데 아니 냠바 주바데 배서 매바 주바 셈내 고와데 대진 대인 말이 quando si va che tu mi dici se ne qua sa je che tu sono o te sono de je danno di se ne qua ma to mi jume se ne qua de timbare e di o te che kana qua nyamba juba de ta se ne kuche de su va ta te top tu che tu lu dang de la ani yi ji shi yu su jian de tu xiong guo de
So then the fifth antidote for the fifth fault is the equanimity that places the mind in its natural state, and that occurs then at the ninth level of achievement of meditative equilibrium or meditative concentration. And so if one enumerates them, breaks down all of the enumerations, the first four, then one has 8, but here it's listed as 5. So then as far as the 9 mind states, the first of these is mental, it's translated as mental placement, placing the mind on the object initially. The second one is continuous placement of the mind on the object. The third is repeated placement of the mind on the object. And then the fourth is called literally close placement of the mind on the object. The fifth is called taming the mind. And the sixth is called pacification. The seventh is called thorough pacification. Then the 8th is called single-pointedness or one-pointedness. That's where one has placed the mind single-pointedly on the object such that it doesn't ever deviate from the object at any time whatsoever. And then the 9th level is, 9th stage is called literally a balanced placement, balanced placement of the mind, or balanced placement.
That's right.
And then there's six powers that enables one to do that. 6 powers.
아니 뭐 주바제 셈내 구와데 다 대톱 주데 가르레에서나 퇴와 삼바 퇴위도 삼배도 천배도 시신지도 준지지도 용수집에 돕세니 돕시 주체.
I'm translating these actually as like forces, 6 forces that enable one to develop these and that function as forces that cause the mind to be stabilized in this fashion. So the first force is listening. Then the second is reflection. Third is mindfulness. The fourth is introspection. Fifth is effort. And the sixth is complete habituation.
Oh yeah, that tambo de kasore towata sambe topji ani semne gugenani kare tukore sana jobadang 균도 jobate 요구하래 아니 담보 띵에서 검수 띵에서 냠바 자수 아니 퇴와라 때네 아니 퇴와라 때네 아니 미바 아니 가소래 섬라 소와게 띵에서 미바들라 아니 심 통만 줘바티 퇴위답지체 되네 가소래 삼배 dobla 때네 퇴위 된데 삼배 dobla 때네 삼배 dob데 아니 가르르 사람 미바 될 균튀네 줘바 될래 아니 균튀데 아니 삼배 dob지지 아니 균이 줘바디 요구와 인장 내도 순이도와 또 대다기 공기 셈고티 균 양양 삼내 장배 균준세 튀니바 토마토비 치르 또 대다기 삼배 dob당 퇴외 dob지 아니 담보 퇴화당 아니 퇴위 된데 양양 삼내 장배 아니 딩에들 줘바당 아니 균준세 아니 균이 줘바니오데 균준세 퇴바 토마토비 치르
So then, how these six forces function to produce their specific mind states. Here, the force of listening to the instruction is the initial force that induces one and enables one to first place the mind on the meditative object. Here, we're again talking about the clear and cognitive or aware nature of the mind. And so that's the object, and it's through listening to an instruction which informs one of how to do this that one initially is able to place the mind on that object. And so that's the first state that's achieved. Here, at that point, one is not one's mental placement is not powerful, and so one rapidly loses the object of meditation. One loses that focus on the object, and so then it's through reflection, thinking about the instruction that you've listened to and understood, that gives one the force to be able to apply the mind back on the object and to extend the period during which one has placed the mind on the object for some time.
Oh, that's it. That didn't teach la. Tempe top chukunane, tempe topji. Semne guinani, anita, lend the jubatan, yawa joba nik sem de chukres. Sana, ani, tinega so miban jena, lion miba the tempe gone, and it's a miba the lion, lambatan. Miba jena, lion tempe, miba the to lamba de tempatan. Yang tambone, and a temper mashowaki. Mashowa, Tambone, Tamba Mashowa, Tingeti, New York in the Tetela, New York in Bari, Tamba Showa, the Mashowa, New York in India, Tamba Topji, and the Joba, the Neva Joba, Semi, da Jubache.
So then those are the first two are achieved through those two forces: mental placement, primarily through listening to the instruction, and then the continuous placement of the mind through reflection, and then by means of mindfulness, by the force of mindfulness, one is able to repeatedly place the mind on the object, and as well as to achieve that close placement of the mind on the object. Here, mindfulness is functioning, the force of mindfulness is functioning so as that when one forgets the object, during the course of a meditation session. Then one again recalls it. Here again, the translation of mindfulness does not capture the recollection dimension of it. Here, so it's like one again recalls the object of meditation, and 당번에 점파 마슈위치.
당번에 아니 마셔봐. 아니 템바기 아니 미유데 마셔봐 직당. 제네 아니양 제바 지금 이 연구요네 미바잖아. 라야 템바 수야 직당. 당번에 템바 마셔봐. 니우데 아니 다 가로서나 템바 돕지. 렌데 줘봐다. 아니 가서래 녀와 줘봐 녀한테 줘야지.
So then, from the very beginning of the meditation session, then by not losing that mindfulness or recollection of the object from the start, then one's able to achieve this repeated placement of the mind on the object of meditation, and then subsequent to that, a continuous, a close placement of the mind on the object of meditation.
오야 다 뒤제라 또 죽은네 시신그 또 되기 아니 두와 쳐봐다 냐와라 시와 쳐봐 그 셈니기 오 셈되니 셈에 되기 내가서 아니 남이라서 남이다 중거라서 냐와 총나 테마타도 르네 아니 시신그 르네 아니 미조와 쳐봐 인장 아니 셈미발라 두와당 아니 셈 아니 중거기 시와 중거 아니 시와 쳐봐 인장 되게 시신 것도 두와 쳐와다 시와 쳐봐 그 셈니 줘봐.
So then the force of introspection is that which enables one to accomplish both the stage of pacification, that mind state called pacification, as well as, a mind state called taming, the fifth of the 9 mind states. And then also it enables one to accomplish the mind state of pacification. What that does is through its recognition of the introspection, recognize the faults of the different forms of distraction, both dullness and agitation. And by having recognized them, then one doesn't follow after them. One doesn't. One's mind is not following after and diffused towards the direction of the distraction and agitation. Dullness and agitation.
그래서 오야 다 뒤제라 다 준비가 없지. 전주그 dobjene namba 시월 쳐봐다 제주도 쳐봐기 안에 셈니 두대 치매 전거 참모양作为帮心拍些没吧他第二个是针对这的整个참모양作为帮心拍的加把没比拍的加把没比吃的是第二个讲作为点过来的안에整个个拍的加把没完吧的是吧一张针对个多些那么希望切把的这就对去被生命对吧的结巴你我出来的我提的整个产业做帮心拍些作为整个产业要作为帮心拍的结巴没为切的是我的第一안에针对个多些生呢对吧的结巴你我的种
So then the force of effort enables one to actualize thorough pacification and one-pointedness, the 7th and 8th of the 9 mind states. And here then it says that, in the text it says, effort, by that force of effort, one is able to achieve the 2 mind states of thorough pacification and one-pointedness. This effort enables one to, through exertion, to get rid of even the subtlest forms of dullness and agitation, and by getting rid of them, to not cause interruption of one's meditative stabilization. So that even here we're talking about subtler forms of dullness and agitation arising, and effort enables one to eliminate them one needs to use exertion though to do that, and to make it so that they don't interrupt the meditation.
오야 다더니 지위 또지 있어 공도 안섬 미바 대다라 안에 내도니 미반 지위 또지 안에 냐바 조비 셈데 셈나 고아데 tum니 안에 뒤에 내가서 안에 배 안에 내가 안에 공도 대다기 첼레라 때네 안에 미바라 안에 배소메바 안에 냐바 조토바기 안에 힌지두바기 안에 등에서
Then the force of habituation enables one to achieve the mind which is placed in equipoise. The force of habituation achieves that. And through the force of the effort that one made previously, all of the effort that one made previously, the mind is now able to operate effortlessly. This occurs without any kind of exertion or effort whatsoever. And one is single-pointedly focused on the object without any kind of agitation or distraction, any kind of dullness, and able to remain that way without effort.
Oh yeah, that 대자위 아니 등에 된데 아니 가서래 리듬 신장기 대회 가서 신장기 대회 남심 봐나 아니 신의 그 어떻고 아니 말이야. 신의 통마 토지가라 셈는 고아지 아니 스미발라 냠바 조비 배면신도도 다 가서를 냠바 조비 가는 영원에 아니 리듬 신장기 대회 심변 되잖아. 아니 신의 그 어체
Then when one achieves that ninth stage of called balanced placement in this translation, here one does that again through the force of effort, of habituation. One is conditioned or habituated oneself so that one is able to remain single-pointedly on the object of meditation without any effort, spontaneously, automatically. The mind will remain on the object of meditation. And then when that is itself governed by, held by the kind of mental and bodily flexibility which engenders special kind of bliss, then that is actually the achievement of shamatha.
Oh yeah, 다기 진예 사회 개와데 단단 조와 군라 간반다 제보 제전로산 이tem비니 모진도 사제 조사시 베제 조젠메도 당 저롤리시 년대jem 상제 신도 메데 보고예 조그 남다 신라 제보 어이당 구로라난 란라 반데 아다야미 Danny